Now, from women in the boardroom to women on banknotes, from trolling to Twitter, one of the talking points of the year has been whether a new form of feminism is taking off, swept along by social media. But are many of today's feminists excluding women who are black and from ethnic minorities? This week, a new hashtag, Solidarity is for White Women, has been trending on social network sites. The creator of the Solidarity is for White Women hashtag says that although feminism is there to unite all women, in reality, it's the privilege of the white middle class. The tweets are piling up thick and fast, but here are just some. Solidarity is for white women when white women are seen as heroic for being a single mom, and women of colour are depicted as baby mamas with drama. Solidarity is for white women when conversations about gender pay gap ignore that white women earn higher wages than black, Latino and native men. Solidarity is for white women is being horrified when a white woman gets raped while ignoring the ongoing daily sexual exploitation of women of colour. Solidarity is for white women when we assume that miniskirts and tube tops equals liberated and hijabs and modest clothing equals oppressed. The backlash really took flight when this photo was published in the New York Times entitled "The New Shades of Feminism?" 4 white middle-class actresses from the popular HBO series Girls. And when the boss of Facebook, Sheryl Sandberg, launched her high-profile campaign advising women to lean in to get to the top of the boardroom, it felt like a message honed for white-collar women. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a certain uniformity about the leaders of a Twitter boycott against the trolls sending threatening tweets to women. So are high-profile feminist discussions excluding women of colour? Well, I'm joined now by the author and critic Bonnie Greer and by the deputy editor of the new Statesman, Helen Lewis, who recently spoke out about trolling on Twitter along with other high-profile columnists. Bonnie Greer first. Feminism should be colourblind, shouldn't it? But this new feminism isn't, is it?
No, it shouldn't be colorblind. Feminism is about human beings. So, we aren't colorblind. So feminism shouldn't be excluded from the general conversation of what's really going on in the world. And I think it's very healthy because of that.
But is there a problem with this new feminism?
No, there's no problem at all. This issue has been with feminism for decades. So it's not anything new. What is new is social media. And the fact that more people can join in this debate and make these examples, I think is very healthy and it's very good.
Well, Helen Lewis, how do you make sure, as a prominent tweeter yourself, how do you make sure that you don't exclude women of colour?
Well, what I tend to do when I'm commissioning is try and think about, am I just only reflecting my own biases and stuff? So our bloggers, for example, we have a woman who's in a wheelchair writing. She brings a different perspective to feminism, to a woman who's transgender, for example. And that's the idea, is more voices is better. And I think it is unavoidable that white middle-class women have more power in society, the second most power to white middle-class men. But what I feel like I have to do is to try and give a better range of voices in any way that I can.
Bonnie Greer, are women of colour not getting heard, or are those in positions of influence not speaking out enough, on social media particularly?
Well, people of color aren't being heard. So then you add the gender factor onto it, you've got a double whammy there. And I think, again, young women especially, this has always been an issue. In the 70s, when I started becoming a feminist as a young woman, Alice Walker brought it up and said that actually women of color should be called womanists, because what we have to bring to the table is racism. So that's always been there. I think younger women are just really now saying, yeah, right, and here are the examples. I think that picture in the New York Times was ridiculous, and that's basically what these women are saying.
Surprising in this day and age, though,
well, you would think so, but then that shows you what they're saying, that this is about class, essentially, and it's about a small club of women who define the argument and define where things are going. And these young women and white women are involved in this debate as well, on the side of women of color, saying this has got to be broadened up, or we're not going to be able to talk about the liberation not only of women, but of all people.
Helen Lewis?
Well, I think Bonnie's entirely right, and there is always going to be this problem. And as you say, it's not something that's new. What has changed with things like Twitter, with blogging, is that it has allowed more people a voice, which can only be a good thing. But the problem is we do need to talk about class in all of this, and I think that's probably, I think that is the big elephant in the room, even more than race, actually, because the media is dominated by the middle class. The middle class in this country is largely white, and those two issues are inextricably connected.
And is that even more the case on Twitter, do you think?
I think Twitter is actually bringing on the voices of women of color, people of color, giving examples, showing the way. Because if it wasn't for Twitter, we wouldn't be sitting here talking about this right now, and we wouldn't be able to actually begin to see the breadth and the depth of this issue. It's going to be headed up by this generation. It's going to confront it. And I think this generation is going to break something that's been going on for decades and decades and decades.
Do you think Solidarities for White Women will change things?
What I think is the problem about that hashtag, and I can see the point behind it, is I would hate to think that people feel that they have to retreat to a silo, that they have to define themselves as a white feminist or a black feminist. They don't see that you can be a feminist and be of any colour. And that's where I think that I would hope the conversation goes from here about how mainstream feminism, which is white-dominated at the moment, can better accommodate a much broader range of voices.
But you know, Helen, I think sometimes you have to go to these little tunnels because it is important to go there, go to the big space that you need to go to as a woman of color, stake your ground, put the examples, make it new, and then we all come together. So I don't have a problem with people going to their corners, as I think that's important.
Bonnie Greer, Helen Lewis, thank you very much for joining us.